would still appreciate if you could continue your support to us in a similar manner that you have been doing so far. So I would like to request Professor Candace to tell something about your schedule, the drop-in center, and the volunteerism that the students should be showing to you, the timings. Please welcome them.
Every American I know said, oh, you're going to Bhutan, where there's gross national happiness. We want you to come back and tell us what that's about. They were all so envious of us being able to come here. And the other day I was in Gadoo, and I was wandering along the road with the cows, and I saw this plant. And in California, we eat this plant. It grows wild. So I was so excited. I said to Fred, look, greens. We can eat some greens. And then I asked someone along the road, do you eat this plant? And they said, no, it's poisonous. I said, oh, really? We eat it in California. And then I asked somebody else, do you eat this plant? They said, no, only the pigs eat that plant. I said, they just don't know how good this plant is. And so we brought it back, and we cooked it in noodles with ginger and garlic, and it was very, very good. So what I'm hoping to do in the Life Lab garden here, which is a demonstration garden, I'm hoping that you will go back to your villages and ask your grandparents and your parents, what grows in the forest that you always ate? What grows naturally? And that you can bring seeds back, and that you can plant them around the school. Because in California, we plant vegetables in with gardens, with flowers. So we have a high diversity, biodiversity of vegetables and flowers. And that way it generates a very rich life with lots of insects and lots of dependence and interactions. So I'm hoping to do that here, and we're starting that in the Life Lab. We started yesterday, and it's a very beautiful garden. And today I hope you join me. We're going to make cairns. Does anybody know what a cairn is? I saw them at the National Museum in Paro. They are stone sculptures where the stones balance. So we have a lot of stone down there. So I thought, oh, we should have some stone sculptures in the garden. So I will be there every day between 4 and 5, either in the garden or in the computer lab. And you can come and talk to me, you can read to me, you can show me your writing. I'll show you the magazines I brought here from California. And hopefully by the end of the week we can see some results.
I received a mail from a person called Candace from the United States, from California University, suggesting that we come up with a project with support from Fulbright Specialist Program. And I thought that's a good idea. Then I sent back, replied the mail, and today we have Dr. Candace all the way from United States. We are here to learn from each other. We hope to understand the needs of the schools if environmental education or agriculture education has to be deeply rooted into the school culture.
Okay, yes, I'm very happy to be here. Bhutan has a lot in common with California, though you may not realize it. We have a very strong organic department at our University of California, and I've been a farmer for many years besides teaching at the university. And I keep telling Lundup that we're in California, we've gone forward by going backward. And what I mean by that is that we now are looking at traditional farming methods We're looking at non-chemical farming. We're looking at using manures, because we've gone through this whole phase of environmentalism. That isn't spelled right, by the way. In which we basically become very skeptical of the use of chemicals because of the linkages with cancer and contamination of our environment. We started out with a fairly pristine country. The US is a very, very new country compared to Bhutan. And we have messed it up a great deal in the 300 to 400 years that we've been around. Canada, a little less so, because it doesn't quite have the population. It had a slightly different ethic and value. The weather is more severe in Canada. But in the US, due to the capitalist system and the proliferation of manufacturing, we've contaminated a lot of our environment. And out of that has come a very strong environmental movement. And people are questioning, how can we return our environment to a state of health and non-chemical and reduce our cancer rates? How can we eat food which is non-contaminated? I understand there's a lot of food coming in from India, which is sprayed. And I think one thing Bhutan really needs to do is to re-employ your traditional methods and get your farmers producing your food so that you're not eating the chemicals that are associated with the capitalistic system in India and the US and every other place where chemicals are produced to poison people. So this is sort of what I just want to show you about where environmentalism has come from and where organics have come from. And it came from a tradition of exploitation of the land. And so we've only started to rethink everything in the last 40 to 50 years. Who has decided? Who has the right to decide for the countless legions of people who were not consulted that the supreme value is a world without insects, even though it be also a sterile world ungraced by the curving wing of a bird in flight? The decision is that of the authoritarian, temporarily entrusted with power. He has made it during a moment of inattention by millions, to whom beauty and the ordered world of nature still have a meaning that is deep and imperative. Who has decided?
We are trying to build a bridge between educators in other countries and educators in Bhutan. We are not alone. We have to learn from each other. That's why it's a very good experience when Dr. Candace shared about how Americans went through, what sort of problems and the difficulties that the Americans went through, and then the solutions they have come about. These are the things that we can learn and then adopt here. Life Lab is a place where students are inspired to ask questions and seek answers through their own research and observations. That is 21st century education. Learning to ask questions, research, observations, learning from experience. Observe the workings of a diverse ecosystem firsthand. Here in Bhutan, I'm saying that the whole country is a life lab. We don't have to create an artificial life lab. It's a life lab. But to facilitate learning, I think you have a very good agriculture garden here. You have a very good campus where you can actually build your own school life lab so that you can conduct classes there. More.
So this is from my university, the Life Lab. And there are all kinds of different exercises. One segment of exercises is called Let's Work Together, Problem Solving and Communication. Another is We Are All Scientists, Awareness and Discovery. And then all these exercises exist under these categories. And my hope is that there'll be an internship program, and the interns will show each other these exercises, and then you will go into the primary schools and teach the children these exercises. Here's one called The Living Earth. These are very good for picking up bottles and things like that. I'm hoping that you will soon have a recycling program, that there will be a truck that goes around to all the schools and picks up the plastic and takes it to Paro where it can be sold. Okay, so you can draw, you can make a sculpture, you can build a wall, you can weed, you can just look at a flower. You can sit and write a poem if you want. And you can look at the books over there. So go ahead and do whatever you'd like to do. There's a saying in English that you should never forget to smell the roses, because someday you won't be around and neither will the rose. So whenever you go by a rose, never forget to smell it. So one thing that I suggested, if they wanted to make sculptures, that they should make ones that were intricately balanced. And then I said, you know, this is sort of expressive of Buddhism because it's always talking about balancing. And so some of them did some really interesting balancing. And so the students started building a wall yesterday. And there's some really good wall builders in your school. There were women too, building.
So I had great experience with my 24 volunteer students who wanted to work in the Life Lab, who wanted to play in the Life Lab. I should say that the Life Lab here is alive and it's living. It's beautiful.
Learning can be more effective in the environment, a clean environment. So it's really interesting to know a thing like Life Lab, where we can not only grow the flowers, but we can also cultivate some crops along with the flowers. For me exceptionally, it would be very great to bring my students here because I teach biology. And, there are chapters like absorption by roots and transpiration, which deals with the plants and all. So I can always bring my students here. This can be, the open environment can be a classroom for me.
I'm thinking of converting my flower garden into a Life Lab too.
Just day before yesterday, I talked to my students and then they said this type of learning is fun. They were very happy. I should say Life Lab taught me a lot. And I'm happy that Life Lab is now here in Pakshika. I hope it grows.